Welcome, viewers of the Awakening Empire. I give you Chapter 1. Somnambulist-seduction. Why did I do that? 6. Ria. Midoriya. Huh. Oh. The inheritor departed from his train of thought, looking to his right and finding Kaminari standing beside his desk. K. Kaminari. Dude, the bell for lunch rang and you're still sitting here. You good? Yeah. Just spaced out there for a moment. I'll be on my way, thank you. Midoriya began to pack up his belongings, a sheet of paper being placed within the left compartment of a folder and pencil hastily thrown into his backpack. Several days had passed after his sports festival, and even with the crazy amount of events that happened during the day, he still couldn't believe what he did. It wasn't his fight against Todoroki, it wasn't breaking the brainwashing effect of Shinso. No. It was something much more idiotic and straightforward. Why he decided to perform this action not even he can begin to understand. At all. It just happened before he can even process what he was about to do. Why, in all of the universes combined from the different continuums, did he wink at midnight? 17. For starters, winking wasn't something he's normally done in the past. Flirting or any kind of seductive practices were not a specialty he's taken an interest in. Partly because he doesn't consider himself to be sexy or good looking in any way, but also because of his main interest. His interest was becoming a hero worthy of taking up the mantle as the next #1 hero, not a chick magnet with the highest kind attractive power. He can leave that to midnight, for crying out loud. Yet even with the entire world focusing on him and the entire population of Japan centered around his strength that day, he decided to wink at easily one of the most eye-catching women heroes society had to offer. 4. A single wink made him restless, staying up for nights, even though his recovery was of the utmost urgency. His battle against Todoroki left him with badly wounded limbs, so sleep was a medicine he needed plenty of. But the memory kept playing in the screen of his mind like a broken record player. It kept repeating up until this day of return back to UA. For the entirety of the day, he's been trying his hardest to keep his head down, avoiding the sound of clicking heels against the floor with pools of drool flooding the halls from the boggled male population. Midoriya had not the slightest idea on how he's going to ever be able to attend Midnight's class for modern art. He just hopes the next time he does, a substitute teacher is present. Backpack slung over his shoulders, he made for the exit of the classroom with the sounds of passing students entering quietly into the room. From the inside, he was curious as to why Kaminari had stopped to look at something around the left side before turning and making for the right side where the cafeteria would be located. Stepping outside of the classroom, he found out for himself why the lightning-streaked boy decided to take a look at something. Or someone. Midoriya. It's wonderful to see you've recovered. The voice that he hoped would not approach him, did in fact approach him. He stopped but didn't even bother in turning around to save him from the embarrassment. Hello, Midnight Sensei. It's good to see you too. Oh really? I didn't know you had eyes on the back of your head. A quirk I'm unaware about. Heh. Heh heh. Yeah, definitely. If you'll excuse me, I'm heading for lunch. I was just about to ask that. Would you like to have lunch with me? I'd like to have a chat with you if that's okay. Just a friendly little talk between the two of us. 18. Is something wrong? Well, for starters, you haven't looked at me ever since coming out here. And you look like you want to take off running. A hand was placed onto his left shoulder softly. Her voice grew quiet, closing in on his same side ear at just above a whisper. Is it because you winked at me during the sports festival? 1. Midoriya, come on. I don't care about a silly little wink, I do it all the time. Don't feel so embarrassed about it. It doesn't mean anything, and it's not like I hold any negative feelings for you because of it. Relax. I can almost feel the tension just on your left shoulder. It's true. He did want to run because his anxiety called for him to do so. How can anybody act normal after winking at their own teacher? Certainly not him. But there was something in her voice that made his worries almost wash away completely. A tide coming to collect the shells that have washed up on the sandy shore. Her words were like verbal knives cutting away at the nervous ropes that have wrapped themselves around him. Creaking slower than a door with rusty hinges, he turned his head at the slowest possible speed ever. He did so until a single sky blue eye entered his field of vision, stopping for a moment. Somehow just one of her eyes seemed to instill a comfortable feeling inside of him. Like nothing can harm him even with the world's greatest dangers knocking on his doorstep. Midoriya continued to turn until her entire face was visible to him, a broad smile illuminating her portrait with incomparable beauty. "There you are," she said caringly. "There's that handsome little face. Now then, care to join me in having lunch? It's okay if you don't want to. I know you normally hang around with your classmates from WANA, so I can understand if you prefer to have lunch with them instead." Midoriya did a quick take to the cafeteria, located behind a set of double doors all the way at the end of the hall. In regards to the only people accounted for out, here it was only the two of them. Uraraka, Ida and Asui were probably waiting for him already, maybe even questioning of his whereabouts. Yet something pulled at the smallest wire inside of him to have lunch with Midnight instead. He didn't know what it was exactly, but he couldn't seem to fight it. Plus, this seems like the perfect opportunity for adding more details on her entry in his hero notebook. Doing his best to not shudder, he deadpan looked into Midnight's eyes. "I think it's okay if I have lunch with you today." "Great." She removed her hand from his shoulder and gestured down the other end of the hall. "Right this way then." Click. 27. The locked door leading into the faculty lounge clicked open with the door handle being pressed down and pushed forward, Midoriya being the first to step through, with Midnight shortly after. It was a basic faculty room, a round dining table, with 4 chairs surrounding it in one corner, and a 2-seated couch with coffee table in another corner. The kitchen area held basic commodities such as a microwave, cupboard for plates and cups, and a white refrigerator with small freezer on the bottom. An entire wall was replaced by a single glass-paned window revealing the beautiful environment outside of a sunny day. "Take a seat anywhere you'd like," Midnight suggested. She locked the door behind them to keep out any students not permitted to enter the room. Each faculty member held their own special key to gain access in the room, so even if she did lock it from the inside with her own key, it didn't mean the other teachers can't get in. "Thank you for having me," Midoriya said. He took a spot at the dining table where he had the perfect view to the outside. "So, there's something why you'd like to speak with me about?" "Well, it's not anything too important. I just wanted to see how you're doing after the sports festival. You suffered heavy injuries with your fight against Todoroki. Any pain still?" "No. Not anymore." "That's good. It's always important to maintain your health. Especially at a young age, such as yours." "Why, yeah. Sure." 6. Hmm. From behind his back, he can hear Midnight humming to herself with items clinking in the refrigerator. Inside his backpack, he retrieved a bento box of lunch prepared by himself due to his mother's absence this morning for work. Pertaining to his workout routine given to All Might, it consisted of fried rice, an assortment of vegetables, and chopped up grilled chicken breasts sprinkled throughout. He was about to dive in due to the hunger rumbling within his stomach, but remembered his manners and decided to wait for his instructor. In the meantime, he slid a hero notebook onto the table and opened up the page containing Midnight's details. He's never really interacted with her socially before the sports festival aside from following her instruction in class. The material for him is rather easy, so he never asked any questions. Yet after that awkward event in getting her autograph, something beckoned to him for wanting to know more about her. Perhaps it was her quirk that drew to him given his passion for wanting to know more about anything quirk related. He only had the basic observations of somnambulist from the outside looking in. She radiates a gas from her body. It knocks out her opponents in a duration of seconds depending on the gender. But maybe there were some complicated bits, he didn't yet know about it. 1. Heels making their way towards him. Midnight arrived at the table with her lunch for the day. It was a bowl of a simple salad tossed in a light dressing to keep her beautiful figure, along with a purple bottle of water, containing the clear liquid with an abundance of chia seeds floating within the seat. She took the seat on his right, plopping down with ease and comfort as he did his best to ignore the fact that when doing so it made her legs look all the more plush. Although he wouldn't clearly state this out loud, he also couldn't deny that Midnight's body was one of the best he's seen. Though, he's preferred to not be seen in the same light as Minetta, so he'll keep his thoughts as just that. Thoughts. So, tell me. She started after taking a sip from her water. Did you enjoy your first sports festival? Pushing aside the notebook, he broke off the chopsticks from each other to start his meal. In all honest, I think I could have done more. If only I had a better handle on my quirk. Don't feel bad for yourself because you lost to Todoroki. The fact that your quirk just barely decided to manifest during your entrance exam means you don't have a complete grasp on it. And that's okay. That's why we're here. Oh. He perked at her second sentence. Why you were told about that? Nope. I saw it for myself. She pointed her chopsticks at him, crunching down her food until proceeding. Believe it or not, even with Bakugo running around in that exam, I still think the best part was you risking it all to destroy that zero-pointer robot. The expression you had when saving Uraraka was just so minus. OHHHHHH goodness his face, when he did that. 17. Brave. It really surprised us. Munching on his own food, he drifted his eyes towards the right arm. That day didn't really feel like a huge achievement for him. At least from his own perspective. He wanted to do so much more with One for All. It was in his genes for wanting to do so much more than what he currently outputs. His exhaustion level of always being looked down upon in the shadows as quirkless is nearing too much. His impatience growing thin like melting ice. He swallowed the morsel in his mouth before speaking. What was your entrance exam when you were in high school? Oh geez. Making me feel old, huh? Sorry. I didn't mean to offend you. Midnight giggled. I'm just teasing you, Midoriya. No need to be cutely flustered. Reaching over with her left hand, she grabbed a chunk of his face and wobbled it playfully, his skin being warm to her touch and flexible equal to clay. She let go of his cheek, watching him rub the spot where her fingers were clenched on his head as a light pink began tinting underneath his eyes. Deep breaths Nimuri. Deep breaths SSS. 15. Inhaling deeply and exhaling back out in the same manner, Midnight tilted her head to the ceiling, revisiting the day of her entrance exam. I'll go back to my first year since you two are in the same grade. It was very similar to yours. A lot of people coming from different schools in different parts of the country. I know only about a handful of them at the time, those being my former friends who I no longer speak to. I was a bit nervous as to what the objective of the exam might be. Since my somnambulist only affects living beings, I was worried we would have to face off against robots like the ones you went up against or some other fake villains. But out of sheer luck I managed to end up in the perfect year to take my entrance exam. He perked his head up with his eyebrows. What did you have to do? The objective was to eliminate 6 of the participants through any means of incapacitation. Whether it be immobilizing them through a motion-stopping quirk, rendering them unfit to continue by tiring them out, or simply knocking out your opponent were all liable. Of course, if you did more harm than what was required, then you would be eliminated yourself. So, keeping that in mind, with my gaseous quirk, she gazed seductively into his eyes. Pretty blue reflecting off of emerald green. There were 175 participants. Only one was left standing. No way. Midoriya nearly flew out of his seat in a sudden burst of excitement, catching Midnight off guard. You eliminated the entire roster of participants during your first year. 4. Wow. With face of amazement, he quickly took to his notebook just beyond his box. Right when he was about to begin scribbling down whatever it was he wanted to write, he stopped. The tip of the pen was pushing down onto the paper ready to inscribe, but he just seemed to freeze entirely. What's he doing? Midnight thought. Her eyes drifted from the pen to his hair, back down to his pen. All of his excitement just vanished into thin air. That twinkle in his eyes upon hearing her results was completely destroyed. Just what on earth happened to him that washed away his wonder? Before she knew it, his shoulders were slumped and the pen was laid down over the page. It rolled into the valley between the two pages sadly, just like his mood. Midnight lowered her head just enough to catch a glimpse of his facial expression. It was broken, tinted by the obscuring color of sadness and pain. There were no tears, but it certainly looked like as if he could have been crying. She reached over, grasping his forearm softly to catch his attention. Midoriya, she said quietly. Are you all right? Loosely moving his head to side, he pondered on what the next words out of his mouth would be. But it wouldn't take long. It would only take a moment or so to form his sentence. No matter how many different ways people put it, how many different viewpoints given to him by the abundance of students and teacher. In his mind, the fact remained the same. By comparing himself, a first year, to Midnight, who told the anecdote of her entrance exam during her first year as well. I wish I could be amazing like you. 1. Now then, you've been given your work for the class period today, Midnight said to her student with a flick of the light switch. She had just finished a presentation on the whiteboard, now leaving the rest of today's work in the form of handouts. If you have any questions, feel free to ask me. Otherwise, you're more than welcome to work by yourself or with those around you. The assignment is relatively easy, so it's due by the end of this period. Dismissed for their assignments, the class of one began to have conversations with each other on working in groups for the assignment. Others, such as Tokoyami and Todoroki, opted to work by themselves out of general preference to not even bother socializing with those around them. They weren't antisocial, they just worked better alone. Midnight did a quick scan of her classroom to see everything moving fluidly and without issue. The students were working on their assignment, so there is no need for her to overlook their shoulders lest they bring up an issue. She took to her desk located in the front left corner of the room beside the whiteboard. The laptop was open and the screen displaying a previous email she had not yet finished typing out. With nails clicking away at her keyboard, the top of her field of vision caught the messy head of hair from earlier. She fixated her eyes onto Midoriya, who was rotated slightly in his chair, facing Uraraka, Ida and Yoirozu, who were all bouncing off advice and the possible answer on the handout. The boy, Midoriya of course, is a very curious individual. He can be loudly passionate for something, but still be quieter than a church mouse. His mood swings were not bipolar by any means, but anything related to himself would always be seen as negative, and he would fall down the well of a sadder emotional state. If she had to compare this rather curious student to an object, it would be a star. Now most people would define a star as something bright, a large ball of different gases all fusing together to superheat into and radiate throughout space. But people seem to forget that around stars, there is nothing. Miles upon millions of miles upon billions of miles containing nothing until another star is found, this time with its own solar system, to be revolves around. Those empty miles of nothing are sad, lifeless with nothing to have hope for. Yet even with nothing around them to see their display, stars continue to shine at their brightest, waiting for somebody to finally see their luminosity. 22. Was Midoriya the brightest star there is? Definitely not, considering his sub-average height for a male his age and demeanor resembling that of an inferiority complex. But in time this star could be, and possible will ever be, the brightest a star can ever grow into. It just needs time. Time and tutoring. Swiveling in his chair to write an answer, down onto his sheet, Midoriya quickly gave a glance up to Midnight for a split second. The second time around he locked his vision with hers, the teacher giving a wink of her right eye. He of course blushed from the flirty action and rubbed the back of his head with his non-writing hand. She gushed at how nervous he can be just by a simple gesture with her eyes, and doesn't think she'll be getting tired of it anytime soon. Secretly, Midoriya scanned the classmates around him and found them all occupied with the assignment. When he was certain nobody laid their eyes on him, he turned towards the wall to act like something had caught his bored attention. And for a moment's duration in time, the hidden confidence of Star flared again. He winked back. 21. Mmm. Midnight chuckled, lightly biting on the right tip of her finger. You, adorable young man you, Izuku Midoriya. 1. Minus. The next day. Through a door came strolling in the R-rated hero, entering the main workroom for staff members. Her posture was sluggish due to the early morning humidity bearing down on her uncomfortably. She drooped her legs with every step until arriving at her desk, turning around and basically falling into the office chair. Her body shape became that of a deflated balloon. Ugh. It's so humid out there. It really is. Ah. Midnight was spooked out of her chair like a scared cat, falling onto the ground in a messy heap. 1. Oh dear. The voice of ectoplasm said, peeking from around the corner of her cubicle. Are you all right? I'm sorry if I frightened you. I had no intention of doing so. Well, you certainly have a knack for doing it anyways. Midnight thought. I'm okay. Just didn't see you there. Forgive me, Midnight. I was so caught up in the offers for the first years I had forgotten to greet you when you came in. Apologies. Oh, the offers, huh? She staggered onto her feet and walked around her desk towards his. On the computer screen was a list containing the entire roster of UAS first-year population with a link attached to their names. The link would then bring up which pro heroes decided to offer a chance at their internship for the student. They're still coming. Not as much as the day after the festival, but yes. A few have been coming in lately. Majority of them opting for these two. Ectoplasm scrolled to the very top of the list where practically all of the offers have gone to. Of course it came as no surprise for Midnight when she saw the names of the students. Who knew her? Bakugo and Todoroki. Two of UAS first-year powerhouses gaining majority of the attention. I was not surprised. Honestly, I think it's a shame. Midnight crossed her arms with a bit of disappointment. So many first years tried their best out there and yet almost all of the offers went to these two. I'm not picking favoritism obviously, but if only heroes saw talent as heart and will. Not a flashy quirk like theirs. I would not feel so bad for the others. If I can remember correctly, Kendo of Class 1B and Yoi Rozu of Class 1A were both given offers by Iwabami. Neither of them made it far in the festival either. She scoffed. Two pretty girls chosen by a pretty woman. I am flabbergasted. Truly. By now Midnight should be accustomed as to where all of the offers went to. If she had to give a direct comparison, it would be moths to a flame. Heroes to a visually appealing quirk. Yet it still irked her greatly that heroes always overlooked the more mundane students for brighter ones. Reason being is because she can relate those students to herself. In terms of visual appeal, the only factor Somnambulist had going for it was the color pink. No outstanding lights or anything of that matter. Her quirk is exceptionally tactical combat-wise, truly. Having the ability to incapacitate your opponents with a single whiff of pink air definitely held its benefits for ending fights quickly. How many offers did the R-rated hero get that festival? Nix. 7. The number 0 sent her spiraling into a cyclone of doubt. If she couldn't get any offers during that year, then what chance would she have of getting any the next year? It's not like she can just up and change quirks during that time span. If she could, well, life would be a lot easier now, wouldn't it? All of her friends had received at least more than 10 offers while she was stuck at the bottom. Her bout in that festival was a tough one, making it all the way up until the semi-final matches before being eliminated through a ring out. Even still, all that sweat proved to be for naught. She wasn't amazing like her other friends were. I wish I could be amazing like you. Do me a favor, ectoplasm? Yes. Look for Midoriya, please. She asked. Ah yes, he was actually one of the people I too am curious about. His strength is astonishingly groundbreaking. But then came the physical backlash of his quirk. And with the physical backlash, well, ectoplasm scrolled towards the very, very, very bottom of the list, finding the inheritor dead last of the roster. So did the hard truth of not receiving any offers. Poor Midoriya, Midnight thought. After all the trouble he went through to get Todoroki in using the fire portion of his quirk, he still didn't get any heroes to look his way. I knew it would amount to this, but still. He deserves better. Sighing, Midnight made her way back around the desk for her own. All that work for nothing. 4. It is unfortunate. But regardless, the first years are all given a list of provisional heroes from which they are able to choose from. Death Arms is on that list, and he's quite formidable. Yeah, but doesn't it bother you how strong Midoriya is yet nobody will take him in? She asked while sitting down. I mean, I get it. His fingers were practically being torn apart from all of those high-powered blasts he sent out continuously. But it wouldn't hurt if anybody, gave him the attention he needs, and I can guarantee you, he will grow up to be one of the better heroes his class can offer. All he needs is the right teacher and boom. Easy money. You're giving him attention. Ugh. You know what I mean. Well, ectoplasm leaned in his chair to the side, his face peering around the cubicle. Why don't you take him in for yourself? You know the rules. Teachers aren't allowed to take interns from their own school. True, yet at the same time, not true. Midnight squinted her eyes at the head. What do you mean? You were never told about this from me, but have you heard of directional student-teacher tutoring appointments? Yeah, just a bit. Principal Nizu hasn't said much about it because there was no need for it in the past. Basically, it's just a personal tutoring session between the teacher and their student outside of a school environment. Since majority of the distractions come from school itself, doing school lessons at home is essentially eliminating those distractions for a more quiet space to work in. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. Wait a minute. And, there it is. Ectoplasm, you genius of a scary-looking hero. I guess you are good at something, aren't you? I teach mathematics. 3. Midnight beat a fist against an open plan. A light bulb illuminating over her head. It's settled then. Forgot about having him as an intern, I can just have him as a personal student for tutoring. And instead of doing that lousy educational stuff, I can be training him instead. Easy peasy booby squeezy. Right, ectoplasm? Yes. He replied. Easy peasy. As they say. You didn't say the last part. I am not going to say something vulgar such as that. Oh, come on, it's not even that bad. Say it. I politely refuse. Please. No. Pretty please. No. Pretty please with me on top because I'm your favorite teacher. Easy peasy minus. Click, excuse me, is Snipe Sensei here by any chow minus? Booby squeezy. With the last words coming out, both teachers quickly whipped around to find a student at the entrance of the door. It was a female student holding a paper in her hand to which she wanted to hand over to Snipe, but instead intruded on something probably intimate or personal. It appeared that way because of ectoplasm's close proximity towards Midnight. The look on her face said it all. 3. I'm so sorry, please forgive me for interrupting. Slam. The student shut the door in a hurry, muffled footsteps bolting down the hall. Midnight and ectoplasm were left by themselves, still staring at the door. A drop of sweat, going down the back of their heads like a manga panel. Just so we're clear. Ectoplasm started. If we get fired, I'm coming after you as a villain. 7. I know. But more importantly, I need your help with this. In order for the tutoring lessons to be approved, don't they have to also be approved by the student as well? They do. He answered. Just because a teacher recommends it, that doesn't mean it has to be forced upon the student. On top of that, a separate teacher has to be the one giving their approval. Midnight gave a smug look towards ectoplasm. Don't you have him at the end of the day? BRing. Very well, students. You have all done exceptional for today. Remember to complete your homework that is due in 2 days. Until tomorrow. Midoriya finished adding up the sum of a multi-part equation, while the others around him didn't even bother in doing so. They just wanted to go home and do whatever was on their mind for the day. Video games, hanging out with others of the same class, or just being a ultra couch potato throughout the afternoon and night. He wanted to get all of the material out of the way and not worry about it at a later time. His quirk is one for all, not procrastination. See you outside, Deku. Uraraka chimed, as she hopped outside of the classroom to join Yida. Sure, one moment. There. All done. Midoriya hurriedly put away his finished assignment into a yellow folder labeled math and slid the accessory into his backpack. With a hop out of his seat and a swing of the backpack around his shoulder, he was on his way home. 3. Midoriya. Ectoplasm called. Stay for a moment. Oh. The boy halted his progress, conveniently right in front of the teacher's desk. Yes, sir. Have a seat, please. The boy did as he was told, sitting in chair on the other side from his instructor. Instantly catching his eye was a microphone sitting just beside the computer monitor, facing more towards the student and not ectoplasm. Attached onto the wall through a strip of tape behind him was a blank sheet of paper, which caused even more confusion for him. What's going on here? Ectoplasm fiddled with something on screen through the use of his mouse. While doing so, he created another clone through the opening of his mouth, floating behind him towards the blank sheet of paper. It grabbed a pencil and wrote the words yes and no, large print, that is visible even from a good distance away. With one last click of the mouse, ectoplasm, the real one that is, placed his hands down to his side and faced Midoriya. Tell me, Midoriya. How are you feeling upon your return from the sports festival? I've been doing okay. Okay, as in everything is fine, or it could be better. Everything is fine. My arms are a bit stiff even now, but I am managing perfectly. That is good. Always bring up an issue to recovery, girl, should it arise. Now, in terms of mental or emotional levels, how are you feeling? Are you stressed? Tired? Do you feel the lack of sleep? No, not really. I'm able to get 8 hours of sleep every night without issue, and I don't feel groggy during the school day. Stress-wise, I don't feel angry or concerned at all. Nothing bothers me to the point where I feel like I'm going to burst out or snap. 3. In terms of school, do you feel like you need some help? Midoriya was about to answer that he didn't need help at all, that the assignments given to him were not difficult at all. But then he saw the clone of ectoplasm point the pencil towards the word yes. The student furrowed his brows questionably with a look towards the real ectoplasm. Without saying a word, he slowly nodded his head at the boy. This whole situation appeared odd for Midoriya, obviously. First, he's clearly being recorded through the microphone on the desk at questions that would normally be asked by a counselor or even the principal. Secondly, he's being told to say an answer that isn't correct at all. This seems like blackmail to him. PSSST. A quiet hiss coming from the door caught his attention just barely. He looked to the frame and found Midnight peering in from the outside. Midnight-sensei. She vigorously nodded her head while pointing at the sheet of paper, with words on it. He mouthed the word "what" at her silently, to which she gave no answer. Midnight gave one last point of her finger at the paper, for him to succumb to her cute, repetitive pushing. The way her purple elongated hair bounced behind her head was excruciatingly adorable. He turned towards Ectoplasm, who was still looking at him silently. Need help with some of the stuff from school? I see. And did you take so long to answer because you were debating with yourself on whether or not to give that answer? Yes. Yes. A- at first, I thought that I don't really need the help, it all seems very simple. But after thinking it over, there are a few subjects I think I could use some help on. Such as modern art. I see. Ectoplasm paused for a moment until proceeding. Do you think if you were given the opportunity to be tutored in this subject, you would accept it? Yes. Yes. I would. Midoriya. At this school we have something known as directional student-teacher tutoring appointments. Have you ever heard about this topic? No. No. I haven't. To simplify this topic, it is basically another method of homeschooling, but with an actual instructor there with you. The aim is to remove the distractions from school and place up in a quiet environment to hone your focus onto the subject in which you struggle with. In this case, modern art is what you struggle with. Do you get the concept? 2. Why, yes. I do. We at UA believe that with the students' permission, we would recommend they participate in these tutoring lessons. It helps eliminate all the interference a busy classroom would normally emit while also providing the comfortable environment of their own home. Grades have gone up exponentially for the few cases that have done these lessons. I think these lessons are a suitable fit for you. Normally, the teacher assigned for these lessons would be picked at random or even volunteer for the positioning. But I think you may be more comfortable with one teacher in particular. Not only have I seen you interact with them during the sports festival, but you seem to be building a stronger bond between the two of you even during normal school hours. Just yesterday I've seen the two of you walking down the hall side by side and interacting through casual conversation. What would you think of your personal instructor being Midnight? 3. So, Midoriya, how was your day today? It was good, up until that confusing last part. He replied. The duo of student and teacher were leisurely walked down the hall of UA towards the front entrance where his friends were either waiting for him or they up and left due to him taking so long. Clicking heels matched the tempo of soft stomping coming from his shoes. What about yours? Oh, it was rather casual. Just a normal day at UA, you know. I suppose so. Midnight Sensei. You've FFF his voice when he says my name. Oh, just imagine him on the bottom now. Stop it, Ninuri. Hold it together. 35. Sensei. OHHHHHHHHHH, goodness, someone take him away before I move. Yes. You wouldn't happen to know anything about the offers for the first years, would you? Midnight's former smirk turned downwards at his question. She glanced to the side to see his pools of green glimmering back up to her with wonder and innocence. It wasn't in her place to tell him anything about the offers, though there wasn't much to tell at all. He didn't receive any. Plain and simple. She could answer with those exact words, but his eyes. Something about his eyes just seemed to entrance her with sympathy and emotion. Was it possible that the reason she felt so caringly for him is because, in a way, she sees herself in him? Thinking about it, their sports festivals were somewhat similar to each other's. Both of them making it past the obstacle course as well as the cavalry battle. Both of them making it past the first round of the matchups and advancing on to the next only to be eliminated sadly. They both gave it their all, and in the end, their all proved to be nothing when it came to receiving offers. He's going down the same path she did, something that as a teacher she wants to prevent. Another reason was to get her sadistic side to shut up about the erotic thoughts going through her mind. Unfortunately I don't, she answered. I'm sorry about that. Maybe when Cementos and all might check, within the next day or two they'll notify Mr. Aizawa if you've received any. Oh. His shoulders slumped down, void of any hope about him receiving offers. Okay. Don't be so sad. She placed a hand onto his shoulder, fingers reaching just at the base of his neck. You gave it your all out there, and as long as you believe that you truly did your best in the field, then doesn't that in itself count as a victory? Be proud, Midoriya. Be proud that you went out there and showed the world a glimpse of who you are. Besides, Midnight gave a light squeeze on his shoulder. You're much more handsome when you don't look so down. He turned to her with a light sprinkle the same color as her gas on his face. Really? Definitely, she winked at him with an alluring charm in her voice. The sprinkle turned into a full-on coating, a finger traveling up to his cheek in hopes of scratching it off. Thank you, Minus. Don't say it, don't say it. Midnight Sensei. Goodness. 13. The duo of teacher and student finally made it to the entrance of the school at long last. Midoriya, being the properly well-raised student that he is, held the door open for her to step outside. As she did so, a hand brushed up against his own, holding the door, sending a rushing shiver through his limb into the spine. Midnight can almost feel the shiver for herself and chuckled and warmly. Midoriya stepped through the open door into the afternoon air. The sun poured down over the campus in a pink-orange glow with a breeze running over his skin. Sunlight bathed Midnight so beautifully, so angelically he found his eyes glued to her like gum on a shoe. He can care less about her ample breasts, or the hourglass figure leading into her sizable backside. It was her face that drew his attention. The baby blue orbs of a hero reflecting the light of the sun. Her skin radiated so smoothly, similar to an undisturbed river. Well, it seems this is where I depart from you. Midnight started. Be careful on your way home. Oh, of course. Have a good night, Midnight Sensei. Bye, she twiddled her fingers, goodbye at him, who in turn just gave a simple wave of his hand. Midnight watched as he hopped down the steps, skipping every other one until breaking into a jog. Surprisingly, some of his classmates were still at the gates leading into the school, so he wouldn't be alone on his journey home. It was very relaxing and therapeutic to see a student living their lives. Obviously having a passion for the ages of youth, but still. To see them quite practically frolic around going about their day-to-day process sent a locomotion of serotonin coursing through her body. Unexpectedly more so towards this young boy. You know, the sudden voice of ectoplasm said right next to her, sending goosebumps down her frightened skin. Even with the recommendation by me, it will still have to be approved by Principal Nizu himself. And if he just so happens to catch on to what you plan on doing in these lessons during the week of the first-year internships. 5. Yup. She answered. That's going to be one hell of a ball I'm going to catch. But I think this will be best for him. If he doesn't receive any offers by the final time Cementos does his review, I can offer him a place to train and be like his classmates. Just because somebody is different doesn't mean they should be kept isolated from the rest of the group. The same can be said for those who didn't receive any offers, they can still learn just like everybody else. We're teachers. We're supposed to be there for our students when they need it most. And I intend on being there for this one.